What if the first decision you make each morning is quietly shaping the entire course of your life? Not your job, not your bank account, not your relationships. That first decision, the one you make before you even leave your bed, that moment when you either rise with purpose or roll over into avoidance, that's where everything begins. Most people never realize it, but how you show up in the first 5 minutes of your day determines who you become over time. It's not dramatic. It's not glamorous. But it's true. And deep down you felt it. Those days when you wake up clear, intentional and ready, you move differently, you think sharper, you speak with more confidence, you act with direction. It's not magic, it's mindset. But the problem is, most mornings don't start like that. They start with noise, scrolling, snoozing, rushing. You don't wake up, you react. And every time you do, a little part of you weakens. A part of your potential gets buried under distraction and habit. And you wonder why you feel stuck, why you're anxious before the day even begins. It's not laziness, it's not failure. It's that you're starting from a place of chaos instead of clarity. And no one taught you how dangerous that is. This isn't just about mornings. This is about your life. Because every single morning, you're given something powerful, a chance, a reset, a quiet window of time where no one is asking anything from you, except your future self. You can ignore it, you can pretend it doesn't matter, or you can own it. The people who change their lives don't wait for permission, they don't wait for motivation, they don't wait for perfect circumstances. They start with a decision, a small one. The decision to rise, not just wake, the decision to move forward, not fall back. That's where transformation begins. And here's the truth, you don't need to overhaul your life overnight. You don't need to wake up at 4 a.m. or run 10 miles or meditate on a mountain. You just need to decide to do one thing every morning that aligns with who you want to become. That's it, that's the shift. From autopilot to awareness, from reaction to intention, from who you've been to who you're becoming. Stay with this. Because what comes next will give you something deeper than motivation. It will give you a blueprint, a reason, a way to take back control, to stop letting the day push you around and start stepping into it with clarity and conviction. You've wasted enough time wondering what's missing. The answer has been there every morning, waiting. This is your moment to reclaim it. Your life won't change by chance. It changes the second you decide to meet each morning like it matters. Because it does. And once you feel the power of starting your day on your terms, you'll never go back. You were not born to drift through your days hoping something changes. You were born to take the wheel, and every morning, the universe gives you that chance, quietly, without applause, without pressure. Just a blank canvas. The question is, what do you paint on it? Most people don't even realize they're wasting that sacred time. They open their eyes and instantly give their power away, to their phone, to their past, to their stress. Before they've taken a breath, they've already lost control. Not because they're weak, but because they never learned the truth. The morning is your mind's most open door. The moment you wake up, your brain is vulnerable, pliable, and ready to be shaped. That's not opinion. That's how you're wired. And what you choose to focus on during that time becomes the emotional lens you wear for the rest of the day. If you feed your mind chaos, fear, and noise, don't be surprised when you carry that energy into every room you walk into. But if you choose clarity, presence, and power, something changes. Not all at once, not like flipping a switch. But day by day, decision by decision, you build a new version of yourself. One with direction, one with depth, one who doesn't just go through life, but leads it. That version of you is not a fantasy. It's already inside you, buried under routine and resistance. But it comes alive the moment you start treating your morning like the mission it truly is. This isn't about becoming someone else. It's about remembering who you've always been. Before the world told you to rush, to doubt, to settle, you had dreams, you had clarity. You had drive. It's still there. It's not lost. It's just waiting to be activated again. And the morning is your access point, not the to-do list, not the distractions. Just that one window of time where your mind is still quiet enough to listen to your soul. That's the moment to speak truth into yourself, to decide how you want to show up. Because if you don't make that decision, the world will make it for you. You owe it to yourself to protect that hour, to give it the respect it deserves. Because the way you start anything affects everything. You want confidence? Build it in the morning. You want discipline? Earn it before the world even wakes up. You want peace? Create it before you open your phone. This is where your life turns, not in the noise, but in the silence you choose to shape. The morning doesn't just prepare you for the day, it prepares you for your future. And if you take that seriously, if you guard that time like your dreams depend on it, you'll start to feel something shift, not in your schedule, but in your identity. That's how change begins, not with more effort, but with more intention. And it starts right here, right now, with what you choose to do at the very beginning. You don't need a perfect plan. You need a pattern. A simple, powerful act that grounds you the moment you wake up. One choice that sets a tone so strong it drowns out the noise of fear, doubt, and distraction. The truth is, transformation isn't built through chaos. It's built through clarity. Through one quiet decision repeated until it becomes part of who you are. That's the secret most people miss. They chase massive change and forget the power of one consistent ritual. Not a long list. Not a complicated system. Just one thing that reminds you who you are and what you're here to do. That small ritual becomes your anchor, your home base. No matter how uncertain the day ahead might be, no matter what the world throws at you, you start with something that is yours, something that you control. And in that control you begin to reclaim your power. Because when you intentionally do one thing every morning that aligns with the life you want, you shift your identity. You stop being someone who waits for change and become someone who creates it. Not through hype, not through pressure, but through quiet, consistent action. The brain doesn't need grand gestures to evolve. It needs patterns, repetition, stability. Every time you repeat a behavior tied to your future self, you reinforce that identity. And every time you skip it, you vote against the person you're trying to become. That's why it matters so much. Not because a single act will change your life, but because it begins the process of alignment. Your thoughts, your choices, your actions. They start to move in the same direction, and that direction becomes your momentum. Imagine what would happen if you chose just one thing. Every single morning, no matter what. Even on the hard days, even on the tired days, even on the days when no one's watching. You breathe, you stretch, you write, you speak truth. You move your body. Whatever it is, just one act that affirms, I'm not here to drift, I'm here to lead. That's when the shift happens. When the ritual stops being something you do and starts becoming who you are. Discipline doesn't come from pressure. It comes from purpose. When you start your day with a ritual that reflects your deepest values, your discipline becomes effortless. It's no longer a chore. It's a form of self-respect. And self-respect builds confidence. Confidence builds clarity. Clarity builds momentum. And momentum builds the life you've been waiting for. One decision, one ritual. That's the spark. There's no magic moment waiting for you. The ritual is the moment. The life you're chasing doesn't start out there. It starts inside you, repeated in the quiet hours when no one sees. But everything changes. If you want transformation, don't wait for the world to hand it to you. Build it, one morning at a time, one ritual at a time. That's how you begin to change your life, by becoming the kind of person who no longer hesitates to begin. You become who you repeatedly choose to be, and the most powerful choice you'll ever make is who you are when no one is watching. That's why your mornings matter so deeply. Because in that quiet, before the world demands a version of you, you get to decide who you really are. Not the mask, not the pressure, not the past. Just you and the future you're willing to create. And that choice, however small, builds your identity one layer at a time. The world won't see it at first. No one will applaud it. But over time, that quiet decision becomes louder than your excuses, stronger than your fears, and more permanent than your doubts. The truth is, you don't lack motivation. You lack alignment. You say you want growth, but your mornings say otherwise. You crave clarity, but you start your day in confusion. You long for change, but begin each morning repeating what hasn't worked. That gap between your goals and your habits, that's where your power is lost. Not because you're incapable, but because you haven't learned how to own your morning. You've been living in response, not intention. And until you make that shift, life will keep feeling heavier than it has to. But something incredible happens the moment you stop reacting and start choosing. You wake up not just to the day, but to your purpose. You begin to feel a quiet strength within you, one that doesn't depend on outside approval. That's the gift of a morning ritual done with purpose. It builds something inside you that the world can't touch. You become less shaken by chaos, more grounded in truth. Your actions become deliberate. Your focus sharpens. Your emotional state rises, not because the day got easier, but because you got stronger. When you begin your day with presence and power, the rest of the world starts to feel less overwhelming. It's not that challenges disappear. It's that you've trained your mind to lead instead of chase. Your emotional state stops being a reaction to circumstances and becomes a product of your discipline. That is freedom. That is self-mastery. And it doesn't come from complexity. It comes from a simple morning act repeated with intention. So ask yourself, what would change if your first decision each day came from your highest self, not your lowest impulse? What would your life look like if you stopped waiting to feel ready and just began? Not once, every day, again and again, until that choice becomes second nature. You don't need more time. You don't need permission. You don't need perfect conditions. You need to start, because nothing changes until you do. Your future is not hiding. It's waiting. Not in some far-off dream, but in the discipline of your morning. in the decision to rise with purpose, in the choice to act even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. This is how lives are changed, not in theory but in the quiet practice of beginning, every single day. Change is not an accident, it's a pattern, a deliberate choice that becomes a rhythm that becomes your reality. The mistake most people make is waiting for life to feel different before they act differently. But that moment never comes. Life doesn't hand you transformation, it hands you opportunities to create it, and those opportunities look small, they look ordinary. They look like 5 extra minutes in the morning, where you could either drift back into the comfort of sleep, or rise into the discomfort of growth. That's the edge. That's the moment where your future is either delayed or activated. You're not lazy, you're not broken, you're just out of rhythm with your own power. When your days begin without intention, you lose alignment. You don't feel like yourself, because you've handed control over to distraction, habit, and fear. But when you start your morning with one focused act, one deliberate ritual, you begin to shift back into your strength. Not the version of you that's shaped by the world's noise, but the version that remembers your own fire. The one that knows what you're capable of, even when doubt tries to convince you otherwise. You're not here to survive the day, you're here to own it. And that ownership starts in the first moments, when your eyes open and your thoughts haven't yet been hijacked. When your body is still, but your potential is awake. That's the window most people waste. They trade it for comfort, for distraction, for the familiar pain of staying the same. But that window is where power lives. If you step into it with intention, you don't just improve your day, you begin to rewire your life. You teach your mind that you are in control. You remind yourself that every day is a chance to rise, not retreat. And you don't need to do everything. You just need to do something. Something that aligns your actions with your aspirations. Something that reconnects you to your vision. The act itself doesn't have to be big. It just has to be true. True to who you want to become. Because when your actions and your identity begin to match, confidence rises. Clarity sharpens. Momentum builds. And you stop chasing change. You start becoming it. You've waited long enough. You've hoped, wished, and wondered. Now it's time to decide. Decide who you are in the quiet. Decide how you begin. Decide what voice you listen to first. Fear or purpose. One decision in the morning can echo through every part of your life. It can shift how you walk, how you think, how you handle challenge. And when that becomes your pattern, change is no longer a struggle. It becomes who you are. Not because the world gave you permission, but because you gave yourself the power to begin, again and again, until you no longer question whether you're becoming better. You know it, because you can feel it every single morning. It's easy to underestimate the power of the beginning, to think the first few minutes of your day don't matter. But they do. They matter more than you realize. Because the way you begin is the way you continue. The energy you step into your day with becomes the energy you carry through your choices, your conversations, your challenges. If you begin scattered, you stay scattered. If you begin slow, your actions lag behind. But if you begin with focus, even just a sliver of it, you create momentum. You set a tone that tells your mind, today is mine. I lead this. I shape this. Most people live on autopilot. They wake up and fall into the same cycle. Check the phone. Drown in notifications. Rush, react, worry, complain. And they wonder why they feel behind before they've even started. It's not because the day is too hard. It's because the day is leading them. But you don't have to live like that. You don't have to give away your first breath to stress. You don't have to give away your attention to things that don't serve your future. You can take it back, not with intensity, but with intention. That's what creates change, not pressure, but presence. Your first act of the day is a message to your mind. It tells you what matters. It tells you who you are. And if that first act is aligned with clarity, strength, purpose, even in the smallest way, you will start to feel a shift inside you. You will feel grounded. You will feel connected. And most importantly, you will feel capable. Not because the day got easier, but because you chose to rise with direction instead of drifting into default. That's where your power is. Not in the external, not in the outcome. And the choice to begin is the version of you who's already becoming unstoppable. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to feel ready. You just need to start. Let go of the need for perfection. That's what holds you back. You wait for the perfect plan, the perfect feeling, the perfect day. But all of that is a lie your fear uses to delay your progress. You're not here to wait. You're here to build. And it starts with a moment, a breath, a commitment to begin, no matter how small. Especially when it's small. Because when you master the small, the big takes care of itself. Every morning is an invitation to return to your power. To wake up not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. To remember that you are not your past. You are not your mistakes. You are your choices. You are your habits. You are what you do, consistently. And if you make the morning sacred, if you use it to rise instead of react, you won't just change how your day feels. You'll change who you are becoming. And that changes everything. If you want to take control of your life, take control of your morning. That's where everything begins, not just the day, but your mindset, your emotional tone, your self-respect. The way you treat those first moments tells your mind whether you're serious about growth or still negotiating with comfort. Most people lose the battle before it starts because they've trained themselves to hit snooze on their own potential. They wake up and immediately retreat, not physically, but mentally. They run from discomfort, from silence, from effort. And every time they do, they tell themselves a story. I'll do it tomorrow. But tomorrow doesn't create you. Today does. You don't need more inspiration. You need direction, a path you can follow, one that starts the moment you open your eyes. Because without that path, your mind will drift into old patterns. It will reach for the familiar, the easy, the safe. And that's where progress dies, at the hands of comfort disguised as convenience. But if you give yourself even 10 minutes to act with purpose, everything begins to change. You interrupt the cycle. You shift from passive to active, from overwhelmed to focused, from lost to intentional. That's not motivation, that's transformation. And it starts so small. A breath held with focus, a journal opened with truth, a cold splash of water that tells your body, wake up. We are alive today. These aren't rituals of routine. They are rituals of rebirth. They reset your nervous system. They reset your identity. They remind you that you are not here to survive this life half awake. You are here to step into it, fully present, fully accountable, fully ready to create something better. You are not a victim of your day. You are the architect of it. When you begin like this, deliberately, consistently, you give your brain what it needs to thrive: certainty, direction, a reason to focus. And your brain rewards that with clarity, energy, and emotional strength. Suddenly, the things that used to break you now sharpen you. The problems you once avoided become proof of how far you've come. You stop bracing for the day and start shaping it. That is power, quiet, inner, unshakable power. And it doesn't come from luck or talent or a perfect plan. It comes from starting the day with intention and repeating that decision until it becomes identity. This is not about being perfect. It's about being present, about showing up in the morning as the version of you that refuses to quit. The one who rises not because it's easy, but because it's necessary, because your life depends on it, because your future is being written in. Every morning you choose to begin again. You don't need to do it all today. You just need to do this. Start. Honor the first few minutes. Protect them. Fill them with purpose. And the life you've been waiting for will begin showing up, not all at once, but piece by piece, from the inside out. Most people never realize that the first battle they face each day is the one within, not against traffic, not against noise, not against stress, but against their own resistance to change. And that resistance is loudest in the morning. It whispers to stay comfortable, to delay effort, to wait for the perfect time. But that voice doesn't want your growth. It wants your silence. It wants you to forget how powerful you are when you act, when you move, when you step into the day with direction. And if you let it win, even once, it grows stronger. It convinces you that staying the same is safer than becoming more. But it's a lie. A deeply convincing one. One you must break every single day, beginning the moment you rise. You don't break that lie with willpower alone. You break it by deciding in advance who you are becoming. You break it by building a morning that reflects that decision. Not just once, but again and again, until it becomes your truth. Because action always beats hesitation, and the simplest morning act done with purpose is more powerful than 1,000 thoughts left undone. This is where confidence is built, not by waiting to feel strong, but by doing what strengthens you, especially when it's hard, especially when your mind offers every excuse to delay. That's the moment to lean in, to choose discipline over doubt, presence over procrastination, identity over impulse. When you rise and lead yourself first, the world begins to respond differently. You walk taller, you speak clearer, you navigate your challenges without crumbling under them. And people notice, not because you're louder, but because you're anchored. You've trained yourself not to be swayed by every emotion, not to be driven by chaos. That's the reward of a morning mastered. It gives you something the world can't touch, control over your direction. And when you have that, no setback can define you. No opinion can shake you. No delay can stop you. But it starts with the smallest decision, to begin, to stop waiting for permission, to stop wishing for change, to stop believing that who you are today is all you'll ever be. You are always becoming. The question is whether you're becoming by default or by design. Every morning gives you that choice. Every moment you open your eyes, you are being handed the pen. Will you write the same story again, or will you begin a new one? One grounded in growth, one led by courage, one fueled by discipline, not emotion. You already have what it takes. It's not something you find, it's something you awaken. And that awakening begins before the world even opens its eyes, in stillness, in silence, in strength, in the quiet decision to rise when it's easier to fall back. Do this every morning, and you won't need to chase transformation. You'll become it, one powerful, intentional choice at a time. Discipline doesn't begin with action. It begins with identity. Before you can consistently do what's hard, you have to believe you are someone who does hard things. Before you can rise early and take command of your morning, you have to stop identifying with who you've been and start aligning with who you're becoming. That shift happens in silence. Before the phone, before the noise, before the world pulls you away from yourself. You have to wake up and remind your mind, this is who I am now. I no longer serve my excuses. I no longer live by impulse. I lead myself. I set the tone. I create the standard. If you don't claim those early minutes, the world will, distraction will, doubt will, comfort will. But none of those things care about your potential. None of them will build your dreams for you. You have to do that work, and it starts with structure, not as control, but as clarity. A structure that grounds you in movement, intention, reflection. A structure that keeps you from drifting back into the person you promised yourself you'd outgrow. Every morning, you are walking a line between your old story and your new one. And the moment you choose discipline, the moment you move with purpose, that line starts to disappear. You stop balancing between the two and start becoming one with the new. What you practice in the morning becomes your emotional muscle. Each rep of focus, each rep of effort, each rep of stillness trains your nervous system to hold more clarity and carry more responsibility without collapsing under pressure. That's why these moments matter so deeply. They are not just tasks to check off. They are affirmations in motion. When you act with consistency, you teach your subconscious that your words mean something, that when you say I will, it happens, and that belief compounds. It shapes how you speak to yourself, how you carry yourself, how you recover when life hits. It's not about being perfect. It's about proving to yourself every morning that you are trustworthy, that you keep your promises, that you don't wait for motivation to move. You move to create momentum. That shift, repeated day after day, becomes unshakable. You no longer wonder if you'll show up. You just do. And in that consistency, confidence blooms, not as a feeling but as a fact, because you've earned it. Not with noise, not with declarations, but with daily evidence that you are rising, you are moving, you are evolving. This is your edge, the quiet commitment, the personal standard. No one else needs to see it. No one else needs to understand it, but you will feel it in your breath, your focus, your pace. You will feel the shift inside you. And as it grows, the gap between who you are and who you want to be will close. Because you'll realize they're not separate. They're connected by the actions you take every single morning. The reason most people never change isn't because they lack desire. It's because they lack alignment. They say they want clarity, energy, purpose. But their mornings tell a different story. Chaos, distraction, delay. You can't rise into your potential while clinging to your past habits. The two cannot coexist. And the moment you truly understand that, the way you approach your morning changes forever. You stop seeing it as optional. You stop treating it like background noise. You begin to treat it like a sacred contract. A space where your future is negotiated through action, not intention, where every choice is a vote for the person you are becoming, and every moment ignored is a vote against it. There is a reason your energy feels off when you start your day reacting to everything around you. It's because your mind was built to lead, not follow chaos. When you open your eyes and immediately hand your attention to the outside world, you give away your inner compass. You drift, you doubt, you disconnect. But when you rise and move with presence, you return to your center. You anchor yourself in discipline. You don't chase clarity, you generate it, not by accident, by design. And when that design becomes consistent, everything else starts falling into place. That inner alignment is where real momentum begins, not with a big, loud breakthrough, but with a quiet shift in posture, in thought, in breath. It's deciding, without excuse, to give your best before the world asks anything of you. And when that becomes your standard, you stop needing outside permission to feel powerful. You become your own source. That self-leadership creates a kind of calm intensity that carries into your work, your relationships, your mindset. People may not see the exact thing you're doing each morning, but they will feel the difference in how you show up. You'll carry a presence that says, I'm not waiting for life to hand me change. I am creating it. It's easy to tell yourself you'll start later, when things settle down, when the timing is better. But the truth is, the version of you that waits is not the version that wins. Progress belongs to those who act, not those who overthink. And the morning is where that action must begin, even if it's small, even if it's uncomfortable, even if no one notices. Because your soul will notice, your nervous system will remember, and your results will follow. That's not luck, that's alignment in motion. If you want to build a life that feels powerful, purposeful, and resilient, then build mornings that reflect that, not rushed, not reactive, but rooted in presence, guided by intention, and reinforced by action. No one can give that to you, but it's always within reach. Every single morning the decision is there. Step toward your future or step away from it. Wake up with hesitation or wake up with purpose. One path repeats your past, the other rewrites it. The choice is yours, every morning, without exception. If you want to feel alive, stop waking up like you're already defeated. Too many people open their eyes and immediately return to the weight of yesterday. They carry stress before their feet even touch the ground. They replay failures, doubts, unfinished tasks, and that mental loop becomes a silent prison. But you weren't built to live in repetition. You were built to rise, to adapt, to transform. The first breath of your day should not be surrender. It should be a declaration, a quiet promise that you will no longer let your mornings be stolen by fear, distraction, or apathy. You are not here to repeat the same patterns. You are here to evolve beyond them. And that evolution is not some distant dream. It starts the second you stop waiting for life to feel easy. Growth isn't meant to be comfortable. It's meant to wake you up, stretch you, challenge the parts of you that want to stay small. That's why your mornings matter more than any other part of your day. Because they set the tone for who you choose to be before the world tells you who to become, before the noise creeps in, before the pressure starts. That's your moment to take ownership. And when you do, you're no longer living by reaction, you're living by design. If you let your morning slip away, you let your power slip away with it. It doesn't mean you need some perfect routine. It means you need presence, intention, movement. A few simple habits done consistently with meaning can completely realign your mindset. You train your brain to associate mornings not with dread, but with discipline. You create a system that tells your subconscious, I'm in control now. I choose where my energy goes. I choose how I show up. That choice builds resilience. You stop being knocked over by every delay, every inconvenience, every moment of doubt. Because you've already practiced stability. You've already proven to yourself that your actions lead your emotions, not the other way around. Every time you wake up and take immediate action, whether it's stretching, journaling, breathing, hydrating, or simply sitting in silence, you're reinforcing a message that echoes into every other area of your life. I lead, I decide, I rise. That mindset doesn't stay trapped in the morning. It follows you into your work, your conversations, your discipline, your dreams. You stop waiting for momentum and start becoming the momentum. You stop asking for confidence and start generating it through action. And that version of you, the one that doesn't flinch at discomfort, that doesn't hesitate when things feel hard, that version is born each day through the simple, quiet decision to show up before the world even sees you. You already have everything you need. The only missing piece is your consistent decision to act like it. When you choose to own your morning, you reclaim your life. That's the truth. Not a cliche, not a trend, just a powerful, tested principle. The morning doesn't make you. You make the morning. And by doing that, you shape your entire future. There is a quiet kind of power that comes from doing the right thing when no one is watching. Waking up with purpose, when your bed feels more comfortable than your goals. Choosing clarity over chaos before the world has even opened its eyes. Those moments may seem small, but they are the roots of unshakable transformation. They shape who you are becoming when no one is applauding and no one is rewarding you, and that's why they matter most. Because the strength you build in silence becomes the strength that carries you when life gets loud, when pressure mounts, when doubt creeps in. You don't rise in those moments. You fall to the level of the standards you've been living all along. That's why the morning isn't about checking off a list. It's about checking into your power. It's about proving, over and over, that you are not a slave to circumstance. You are the architect of your emotional state. You are the one who chooses how to feel, how to think, how to respond. And when you train yourself to lead from that place first thing each day, you begin to notice the shift. Stress no longer owns you. Delay no longer derails you. Fear no longer stops you. Because you've built a foundation stronger than any excuse. Every morning you rise with intention, you plant a seed, and that seed doesn't stay buried. It becomes habits, focus, results. It becomes a sense of grounded confidence that others can't quite explain. But you know where it came from. It came from the hard choice to show up, not once, but daily, when it was inconvenient, when it was uncomfortable, when no one told you to. That's when the transformation became real. You didn't need motivation, you created motion. You didn't wait for the perfect moment. You made the moment matter. This is the standard you must protect. Not perfection, but consistency. Not intensity, but integrity. It's easy to start strong. It's easy to talk about change. But what sets you apart is what you do when no one is keeping score. The way you move through your mornings writes the truth of your discipline in permanent ink. And when that becomes your identity, someone who shows up, someone who leads, someone who keeps their word, your external life begins to reflect that internal certainty. You'll begin to trust yourself more, believe in yourself more. You'll feel less pulled by the outside world, because your inner world has become stronger, clearer, sharper. And with that comes freedom. The freedom to act without hesitation, the freedom to grow without fear, the freedom to live with direction, not distraction. That's the life you are building, one morning at a time. Not through grand gestures, but through grounded repetition, through choosing alignment over ease, through rising into your potential, not falling back into your past. Because when you own your morning, you take back the one thing no one else can give you, control of your life. You were not born to chase life, you were born to lead it. But leadership begins with self. It begins in those first waking moments, before the world invades your mind, before the noise can drown out your clarity. It begins with the decision to be intentional rather than impulsive. You don't need to be in control of everything. You just need to be in control of yourself, the way you think, the way you respond, the way you act when no one is watching. That's where real strength is forged, not in the spotlight, but in silence. Each morning is a blank slate. It is the only time of day when your mind is still untouched by comparison, pressure, and expectation. That space is sacred, and it's where your real life can begin if you choose to honor it. Not with urgency, but with presence. Not with chaos, but with calm. There's power in stillness. There's focus in breath. There's clarity in solitude. And the more you allow yourself to be present in those moments, the less the world can shake you. You start operating from a place of grounded power rather than emotional reaction. When you give your first moments to intention, you reclaim your authority. You are no longer a passenger in your own life. You are the driver. You don't wait to see how the day will go. You define it. You give it a voice. And that voice echoes into every conversation, every choice, every step. You are training your brain to work for you, not against you. You are rewiring your focus, your habits, your entire belief system to serve your highest self. That process begins with repetition, discipline, or stillness, direction. Most people wake up into survival mode. They react to life before they even remember who they are. That is not how transformation happens. Change starts with awareness. It starts with one quiet moment of truth. You are capable of more than you've allowed yourself to believe. You are capable of discipline that lasts, of habits that matter, of a mindset that doesn't collapse at the first sign of discomfort. But you have to remind yourself of that every single day, not once, not when it's easy, but especially when it's not. When you rise and act with clarity, you give yourself something more powerful than motivation. You give yourself identity. You stop being someone who wants change and start being someone who lives it. The actions become non-negotiable, not because of pressure, but because of alignment. You don't need to be convinced to keep going. You already decided who you are. And that decision makes everything else easier. You don't follow through to feel good. You follow through because you become the kind of person who does. That is the quiet force behind every great life. The steady, repeated decision to rise into your strength before the world has a chance to define it for you. And that choice, made daily, changes everything. Discipline is not about punishment, it's about alignment. It's the quiet agreement you make with yourself that your future deserves more than your impulses, that your vision is worth more than your distractions. And that agreement is not something you sign once, it's something you renew every morning, before the phone, before the noise, before the world pulls you into its demands. You meet yourself where it matters. At the beginning of the day, when your decisions are still yours alone. That moment defines you, not because it's loud or impressive, but because it is honest. It reveals what you're really committed to. You do not become consistent by waiting to feel ready. You become consistent by choosing, by moving before your mind talks you out of it, by becoming the kind of person who doesn't negotiate with excuses, the kind of person who does what needs to be done even when it's uncomfortable, especially then. Because that's when the shift happens. That's when you start to trust yourself again. When you keep the promises no one else knows you made. And that quiet victory builds something powerful inside of you, certainty. Not arrogance, not false confidence, but real inner certainty. The kind that cannot be shaken by opinions, setbacks, or circumstances. When you take ownership of your morning, you stop waiting for your life to change. You realize you are the one with the pen. You're not stuck. You're not behind. You're not broken. You're just one decision away from direction, one act of courage away from momentum, one new habit away from clarity. But none of that comes from waiting. It comes from waking up and acting like your life matters. Because it does. And how you treat those first few minutes reveals whether you believe that or not. There's no shortcut to this. There's no magic secret. It's just you showing up day after day, quietly, consistently, powerfully. And over time, that consistency becomes your identity. Not because someone gave you permission, but because you earned it. And that identity drives everything. You stop looking for motivation because you already have momentum. You stop chasing validation because you've built self-respect. You stop doubting yourself because you've shown yourself who you really are. This is what real transformation looks like. Not a sudden breakthrough, but a steady rise. Not a flash of inspiration, but a foundation of discipline. Every morning you choose alignment over ease, you step further into that future. Not in theory, but in reality. Not someday, but today. Because your life doesn't respond to your thoughts, it responds to your actions. And when those actions are rooted in purpose, in discipline, in truth, there is no limit to how far you can go. Your mornings are not a routine. They are a revolution. One quiet act of power at a time. Your life will not rise higher than your standards. And your standards are not what you speak. They are what you tolerate in yourself, especially when no one else sees it. The moment you allow delay, the moment you say just 5 more minutes, the moment you skip what you said mattered yesterday, that is the moment you shape your future. Not later. Not next week. In that exact second, your brain is learning what you will and will not demand of yourself. And every time you choose comfort over commitment, that message gets louder. But when you do the opposite, when you rise with purpose instead of permission, you redefine what is possible. Self-respect is built when you do the difficult thing simply because you said you would. It's not about punishment. It's about showing yourself you are worth the discipline. That your dreams deserve structure. That your values are more than vague ideas. Their actions lived out before the world has a chance to interrupt them. The people who lead their lives don't wait to feel like it. They anchor their habits to identity. They don't ask, do I want to do this today? They already decided. They show up because it's who they are, not because it's convenient. You're not here to survive another day. You're here to master it. And mastery begins with mastery of self. Not dramatic, not loud, quiet, focused, intentional. When you get out of bed before your feelings take control, when you move your body, when you focus your thoughts, you're not just preparing for the day. You are preparing yourself to win, not because you have to prove anything, but because you are stepping into your potential. And potential is nothing without discipline. It's wasted without action. You've been carrying the ability all along. But ability only matters when it becomes behavior. There is a deeper power inside you, one that doesn't scream but leads, one that isn't fragile but steady, one that stops chasing approval and starts honoring the mission. That power grows every time you choose what's right over what's easy, every time you silence the noise and return to your center, every time you hold the line, not just for a result, but because you've decided what kind of person you are going to be, no matter how you feel in the moment. Every action is a vote for the future you believe in. So when you rise early and give yourself to that routine, you are not checking a box. You are casting a vote for discipline, for growth, for clarity, for strength. That vote compounds. That vote rewires your identity. That vote makes it easier to cast the next one. And before long, you're not just doing the habit, you become the person, the one who follows through, the one who leads themselves, the one who no longer negotiates with mediocrity. That is how you change. That is how your life begins to reflect your true potential. One decision at a time, one morning at a time. What you do in the first hour of your day echoes throughout everything else. It becomes the rhythm your mind follows, the tone your emotions carry, and the posture your energy holds. That first hour is a mirror, showing you how seriously you take your own life. If you begin rushed, distracted, or reactive, that chaos spills into your thoughts, your choices, your interactions. But when you begin grounded, intentional, and clear, everything else bends to that stability. The world outside may remain unpredictable, but your internal world becomes ordered. And in that order, you gain power. Not through force, but through calm. Not through control, but through clarity. You don't need to change your entire life in a day. You only need to change your direction. Each morning gives you that choice, the path of resistance or the path of reaction. The moment you sit in stillness instead of scrolling. The moment you breathe deeply instead of rushing blindly. The moment you remind yourself of what truly matters. You separate yourself from the noise. You no longer live by default. You live by design. And when you do that consistently, your mind changes, your body changes, your results change, but most importantly, your belief changes. You begin to believe in your ability to lead your life. You begin to expect more from yourself. And that expectation pulls you into growth, even when it's hard. It doesn't matter how yesterday looked. It doesn't matter how many times you've failed or quit or stumbled. What matters is that you're willing to rise again today. Not with guilt, not with shame, but with resolve. The world will try to convince you that change requires massive, dramatic action, But the truth is, it's quiet, it's steady, it's hidden in the habits no one sees. It's built in the dark. While others sleep, complain, or avoid, you're choosing growth. You're planting seeds. Seeds of mental strength, emotional control, and spiritual peace. Those seeds become roots. Those roots anchor your future. And they start with what you do this morning. No one is coming to do it for you. But no one can take it from you either. That's your power. And it's already within you. You don't need to wait for inspiration. You don't need the perfect plan. You only need one clear choice: to show up. With intention, with purpose, with honesty. And when you do that day after day, your life stops feeling like a struggle and starts becoming a statement. A declaration that you will not live small. That you will not settle. That you will no longer shrink to fit the world's expectations. Every sunrise is a signal. A reminder that nothing is fixed, nothing is final, and everything is still possible. But only if you act, only if you move, only if you begin, not someday, not later, but now. Because now is all you ever really have, and how you use it will define who you become. You've been given today as a gift, but whether it becomes a breakthrough or just another blur depends entirely on your decision to treat it like it matters, because it does. What you do this morning speaks louder than what you say you want. Dreams are cheap when not matched with daily effort. Hope without habit is just noise. Every action you take before the world gets loud is a declaration of how much your future means to you. The moment you take control of your mornings, you take control of your direction. Because the first choices of the day carry more power than most people realize. They are momentum in disguise. They are silent proof that you're either leading your life or letting it drift. Most people wake up and react. They reach for their phone before they reach for their thoughts. They scroll before they stretch. They absorb the world's chaos before they anchor themselves in purpose. But you are not most people. You are here because you know there is more for you. More clarity, more strength, more impact. And that more doesn't come from wishing. It comes from building. Quietly, consistently, courageously. The habits that shape your destiny are forged when no one is watching, when no one is applauding, when it's still dark outside and your bed whispers for you to stay. But you rise because your future is worth it. Every small intentional act in the morning is an act of rebellion against mediocrity. When you breathe with focus, when you move with purpose, when you speak truth into your day, you're not just preparing for life, you're rewriting it. You're training your nervous system to respond with power instead of panic. You're conditioning your mind to focus on what you can control. You're separating yourself from the masses who live on autopilot. You're becoming someone who doesn't just survive their days but commands them. Because that's what leadership really is. Not a title, but a standard. Not about controlling others, but controlling yourself. There is something sacred about the silence of the early hours. It gives you space to think clearly, to connect deeply, and to align with what truly matters. In that stillness you get honest. You face your doubts and call out your excuses. You no longer hide behind distractions. You meet your own eyes, and you ask better questions. Who am I becoming? What am I tolerating? What am I building with this one short life? And those questions cut through noise. They bring urgency. They bring ownership. And with ownership there is no turning back. This morning isn't a repeat of yesterday, unless you choose to make it one. It can be a pivot point, a reset, a line drawn between who you were and who you're ready to become. So stand in that moment with strength. Don't wait to feel ready. Decide to be ready. Decide that from this day forward, you will meet each morning as if your life depends on it, because it does.